I am back, everybody. I am back. It's been a week, it's an interesting week. There's even breaking news as I'm about to go live here. So, without further ado, let's get this thing started, shall we? 54 degrees out here in New York City, coming to you live from Queens, New York. Good morning, bitches. Yo! What's up, everybody? I know it's been a hot minute. It's been a while. I haven't streamed at all this whole week. It's been a multitude of things, really. I'm having a lot of problems with my seasonal allergies. I just popped the pill in right before I went live, so that's been troubling me. Two, I haven't been sleeping so great. So usually around this time, I've been up like maybe 18 hours. That's how it's been like that for me the whole week. So my whole motivation and function just has not been working whatsoever this whole week. I started like correcting things towards the end of the week. That's why you were able to see me like post some stuff on the channel. So I was able to do my reactions yesterday to the new trailers for Trap, the new M. Night Shyamalan movie coming out this year. I believe it's coming out in August. And then the new Transformers 1 animated movie trailer. So I was able to react to those and post those live yesterday. And I was able to get some decent sleep last night because I plowed through yesterday. Like normally I would take a nap around noon or maybe like even like around 2 or 3 o'clock. And then I wouldn't wake up again until 8 p.m. So it's been a rough week for your boy. But I was able to get some sleep, some decent sleep last night. I'm here. And I am ready to party. I'm ready to party hardy. So, relatively, this whole week has been slow and quiet when it's come to, news, major announcements. It hasn't been that crazy. I think the industry kind of took a break from CinemaCon last week because of everything that they kind of discussed last week. Some of the trailers that they dropped last week, some of them are slowly finding their way to the internet now. Like Trap was something that they showed last week at CinemaCon. Transformers 1 they also showed last week. So they're finally like releasing those things little bit by little bit, right? Bit by bit. And news-wise, it's been kind of slow. Now, there are some announcements, like obviously the big news, I think, of the week was Quentin Tarantino. Reports are showing, and I don't know if there's major confirmation yet. Well, I'll read more into it. But, everyone knows that he has kind of tasked himself in he's only going to be directing 10 movies in his entire career. Like, fully on his own, directing 10 movies, right? Major feature films. So he announced that his 10th movie was going to be this movie called The Critic. Not many details about what the movie was going to be about. A lot of people were kind of speculating that this is Tarantino's way to kind of shoot back at critics for his film reviews or, during his time in the industry. It's like a nice little either attack on the critics or kind of homage to the critics or just an homage to critics in general. Right, especially in the movie landscape. And it sounded like there were going to be a good amount of people attached to this film. I believe Leonardo DiCaprio may have been attached at one point. I don't know. But now rumors are speculating or going around and being reported that he has decided to drop this film and restart and figure out what he's going to do next. So it's kind of an interesting thing. It's like it makes you wonder, like, why is he getting cold feet? Maybe he's reevaluating his whole, maybe 10 movies is not enough for me, or I don't know, or maybe he's just come across some sort of creative block that's preventing him from making this film of his. So I don't know. It's really interesting to hear. I don't know the full details yet, but I'll kind of read about it more this morning and discuss it with you. And there are some things that I didn't watch the new Guy Ritchie movie that came out that's releasing today. I didn't watch that yet, so I'm planning to watch that this weekend. So I'll give my thoughts on that probably on Monday. And then today on Netflix, part 2 of Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon has come out. Now, if you are familiar with myself in the channel, you'll know that I wasn't that big of a fan of part 1. So I wasn't eagerly anticipating for part 2 to come out. But it's out today, and I feel like I owe it to myself to watch it just to see where this story goes. Maybe torture myself a little bit. Maybe I'm a bit of a masochist. I don't know. I guess I like to put myself through terrible situations. I'm like that when it comes to a lot of things. Like, I love watching bad movies. And I also love playing bad video games, and I get a kick out of it for some reason. So maybe I'll do that this weekend, and then maybe you'll hear my thoughts about it on Monday as well. So, but this week I definitely do want to talk about X-Men 97, episode 6 that came out, and Tokyo Vice. If you are not watching Tokyo Vice, you are missing out on probably one of the best crime thriller shows on streaming right now. It's on Max, and it's based off of true events. The main character in this, he's working closely with this production crew in this production. He wrote a book back in the day called Tokyo Vice, and basically it chronicles his story about being a journalist in Tokyo, an American journalist in Tokyo, covering the Yakuza. And it's an interesting story. Season 1, when that came out, I believe like a year or two ago, I fell in love with it right away. Just great performances, great storytelling. And season 2 just concluded about a week ago, and I was able to finally binge through the whole thing. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that and why I think you should be all watching that. What's up, Chad is in the house. What's going on, my brother? You're curious about how the sequel will be. You dug the ending in the first one. Okay. Well, it is now out this weekend, so hopefully you'll get a chance to watch. Is X-Men 90C... Hold on, coffee time. I need more coffee, wait. All right, shut up, Mario. Is X-Men 97 worth watching? Hell yes. If you are not watching X-Men 97, and if you were a huge fan of the original X-Men animated series in the 90s, and you're not watching this series, you're doing a major disservice to yourself. It is a great homage to the original series. It picks up exactly where that series left off, and it continues the same tone and flow and character development, storytelling, everything that you enjoyed watching that series. It's doing it more so now, and it is definitely catered more to an adult audience, but I think in a way the original animated series wasn't really catered to young kids, right? I feel like it was really more to teens. This definitely has the spirit of all of that, and I've been enjoying every episode so far, with the exception of one, which was kind of like a 2-in-1 episode. That was episode 4. Episode 6 dropped this past week, and it's a really great episode. So you really need to watch this if you haven't yet. So definitely worth the watch there. And it's all like 30-minute episodes. So it's like quick. And they're releasing it week to week. So it's very easy to catch up too. And so I believe this season will be 8 episodes. 8 or 10. I'm not exactly sure how many there are, but it's basically that much. and it's definitely worth the watch. And you'll hear me talk about episode 6 later on in this morning stream. Also, I'll be going live on Shorts in a little bit as we talk about the first thing, something that just dropped this morning, and I haven't had a chance to really read it. Not read it, but watch it. If you're familiar with the channel Watcher, it's mainly 3 guys that started their whole major careers on YouTube with BuzzFeed. Shane Madej, Ryan Bergara, and Steven, I forgot his last name. But if you remember, on BuzzFeed, they did Unsolved, and then they did their ghost hunting show. I was introduced to these guys like maybe 3 years ago. And they've been around on the internet for a while, and I really enjoy this group. They're entertaining, they're funny. I love how, you know, they work off of each other, Shane and Ryan. Ryan is more of the believer when it comes to supernatural and ghosts, and Shane is the pessimist, right? He doesn't really believe in a lot of that stuff. So they really have great back and forth chemistry and all. They left BuzzFeed to start their own channel called Watcher, where they kind of developed their own shows very similar to what they did on BuzzFeed. They did, whatchamacallit, they did Mystery Files, which is kind of like their unsolved show. And then they did Ghost Files, which is their new ghost hunting show. And for the most part, it's been fun and entertaining and all that. And they dropped a video this morning. Again, like I said, I haven't got a chance to watch the whole thing. But the title alone basically just says goodbye YouTube. So I'm speculating that they're leaving the platform to create their own. I noticed like some companies have done this in the past. For example, I'm a huge fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000. You could tell here, I don't know if you could see by my mug, I love Mystery Science Theater 3000. They decided to create kind of their own streaming platform where you could just stream 24/7 Mystery Science Theater 3000 episodes. And that's also the platform where they launch their new seasons that are usually backed by Kickstarter, crowdfunding and all that. So there are a lot of major outlets, not major, but a lot of, I guess, pop culture outlets that have very strong fan funding. They tend to do this because they get to control their funds. They get to kind of, you know, work directly with the fan community. I understand it's something that's fascinating, but for these group of guys who've been basically on YouTube for the longest time and formulated their careers on YouTube, for them to be possibly leaving the platform, I think is bananas to me. So I guess they made their announcement this morning, and I'm going to be watching that along and reacting to it all. Chad with a question, what's your take on the 3-body problem? I haven't seen it yet. It's been on my queue. Just haven't had a chance to see it yet. There's just too much to watch. Plus, I watch movies a lot. So, you know, I do a lot of research. I watch movies. I watch a lot of backlog of movies. Like right now, before the movie Challengers comes out, I'm going through the filmography of director Luca Guadagnino, who is a director I'm not very familiar with. So me and my buddy Blake, who we do the Movie Time podcast together, check it out on your podcast platform of choice. We do episodes there. And hopefully they'll be coming soon to this channel here on YouTube too, very soon. I just need to figure out an easier flow for all that. You've seen episodes with us in the past, and you've seen videos with us in the past. I just need to find a better way because it's a lot of time. It's very time consuming. But we're doing kind of like a look back at this director's filmography, and it's quite a bit. So I just watching a lot of those things and watching X-Men 97. I just binged watch Tokyo Vice season 2. So I'm so behind on things, and there's stuff that even came out last year that I still haven't had a chance to watch. My next thing that I'm watching is Shogun because it ends next week. So I'm going to start watching it now, leading up until the final episode that launches next week, so that I can be all caught up in that and then be able to talk about it. So the one thing I hate about shows that release all at once is that many people are expected to watch it immediately. And the buzz lasts for only 1 week or 2 weeks max. And then it fades away. The one thing I love about shows that launch week to week is that you have the ability to catch up, even though you may have missed the first 2 or 3 weeks of it releasing. You could still find ways to catch up and be amongst the conversation when everyone is watching the show as it's still going on. That's one of the reasons why I love the week-to-week model. But I also understand that there is a need for the binge model too. Release all the shows at once, watch it at your will, and whatever you want to do with it, you do with it. But for me personally, I love the week-to-week model. So, I need there's just too much to watch and so much to catch up on. You're saying it's a slow burn? Okay. I like slow burn stuff. Some of my favorite movies I love watching are slow burns, so I don't mind that at all. So like I said, it's definitely on my list of things to watch, especially since it's Benioff and Weiss, the guys who did Game of Thrones. I've been so curious as to what their newest project was going to be after the whole Star Wars debacle and them no longer directing Star Wars or a Star Wars movie or series of movies as it was originally planned. I was very curious as to what they were going to do, especially for Netflix once I heard that they were contracted with Netflix. So it is something I'm definitely going to watch and catch up on soon. All right. So for those of you who may be interested or not, it's perfectly fine either way. I am now officially live on YouTube Shorts as well. So if you love watching the vertical format, I am now available on there as well. So what's up to everyone on YouTube Shorts? Hold on, I just want to make sure I am live. Yes, I am. Wait, am I? I don't know. Hold on, give me a second. All this technology is so new. I don't know what I'm doing. All right, hold on, give me a second here. Doesn't seem to be connecting, which is odd. Oh, maybe it's because I'm not. Hold on. Let's see. Hold, please. I had this working last week, so it's interesting that I'm having problems now. Hold on, let's see. Let's see. What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Give me 1 second, guys. Sorry. Vertical Shorts. Oh, I know what I did wrong. I pressed the wrong button because I'm a freaking idiot. I'm a moron. Yes, I am. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, now I should be live on Shorts. Let's see. Let me just double check. Yes, I am. Here we go. I am officially live on Shorts. Let me make sure I pull up that chat because it is a different format and it's a different separate chat altogether. So I want to make sure that I have that available because I don't want to miss anyone's chat. And I think I could pop it out too. Yeah, pop it out, pop it out, pop it out. I'm going to pop it out. I'm going to pop you out. I'm going to pop out everybody. I don't know what I'm talking about. And you know what? That's okay. I'm perfectly fine with that. Because I am a lunatic. A lunatic. I'm loony toony. All right, everyone. I should be live and all that good stuff. All right. So, a good morning to everybody. I hope everyone has had a wonderful week so far, as I'm here live regularly on YouTube and also on YouTube Shorts. So, Chad, I don't know if you had a chance to check it out, but I think I am live. From what I can tell, I'm live all around. So, it's just going to be a hot mess of a morning. But here's one thing I wanted to do. And I already alluded to it earlier about Watcher. So again, they released this video this morning. And it was crazy for me to find out because as we were going live here, what's up, Aguilar? How you doing today? Hope you're doing well. They just dropped this video and it says goodbye YouTube. And it's crazy because Watcher has been, from what it looks like, been doing very, very well on YouTube. And I don't know what the crux of the announcement is. I haven't had a chance to watch it all, but let's check it out here. And I know on the shorts format, it's going to look kind of weird. So I apologize in advance for that. See what happens if I put this big screen. There we go. Hopefully I won't get any copyright strikes on this. Aguilar, where are you from? I can't see what those flags are.
It's the right thing to do. If this is my last time on YouTube, then baby, what a life I've lived here on this platform.
I grew up on YouTube. All of my heroes were on YouTube. I learned how to...
I'm a big fan of these guys. And like I said, I remember watching them on BuzzFeed originally before they branched off onto their own channel.
My name is Ryan Steven Bergara, and
oh my god, look how young Ryan is here. Oh, Shane, look how young he is.
To another exciting episode of Extreme Science.
I had no idea what to do for my intro. Please don't stop watching. Please.
My first YouTube video that I ever made was in 2012.
And that, my friends, is how you will become the most baller in your city.
This guy is crazy.
But I think it really encapsulates early YouTube, which is this like...
This guy is like the very stereotypical early YouTuber.
Something that was in your head and sharing it with the world.
What's he doing? Taking a shit.
Or it was a way for me to find self-esteem. I guess when I'm making things, it's when I feel...
God, Ryan looks so young here.
Into my adult life, and in a lot of ways, sometimes I look back and
it's so crazy seeing all of this old footage.
I'm sure if you ask people about that, they probably would agree with me that I have not grown up. I went to
No, he hasn't.
University for 2 years because it felt very selfish and weird to want to go into film, and I was like, I got to do something responsible. I can't just do something that is fun. And then after 2 years of that, I was like, I'm really sad, and I really don't. I was like, I guess
it's so crazy. Like, it's funny because, like, if it wasn't for BuzzFeed, I would have never known about these guys.
College in Chicago and studied editing. But even before that, when I was at Northern, I was still making a bunch of dumb little videos. Plenty of dumb little videos. My
myself, Shane, Steven, we all came from BuzzFeed. It was kind of
Yep.
like the formative
BuzzFeed.
years of our creative process.
I didn't really know how to make a video. I didn't know virality. I didn't understand the internet that well. So BuzzFeed for me was like college.
I had a great time there. I was never very good.
They were there for a while too. I think they were there for like
viral stuff.
I don't know,
Stuff that
6
I
to
did
8
find
years.
success with was stuff that I was very passionate about, and that was kind of hit or miss, you know.
Yeah, we were working crazy hours trying to get the next cool hit video out.
Making of a K-pop star.
And that was the culture there. It was fun, but also intense.
Steven and myself made something called Worth It and Unsolved, respectively.
Unsolved, man, that was such a great show. That was like their
Luckily, I was, you know,
Unsolved Mysteries show.
and was able to be in that.
There was a fire in all three of us. We had something to prove. We had a passion.
I also love that set that they had too. It was such a cool set.
Above its weight. And so we figured, okay, if we can make something for BuzzFeed that's like that, why couldn't we not bet on ourselves and then perhaps do the same thing at our own little shop? When the three of us huddled together around my little kitchen table in my apartment, we kind of wrote down the mission statement of just, we want to make a studio.
It's funny too because like I knew Steven has always been with the group, but I had no idea he had such an integral part in everything that they'd done, especially spawning off on their own.
Especially when we first started Unsolved and Worth It, and we wanted to continue that trend over here at Watcher.
I think the philosophy of Watcher is us very earnestly exploring something without much
Puppet History. It's another great show of theirs that they do.
It's a jokey channel, but I think underneath it all, there's like a genuine interest in stuff and a passion for exploring, you know, the stuff that we're...
Let me know if you guys are having problems hearing this. It sounds good to me. So
My proudest moments have been being able to hire incredible people. It's like growing our staff from 3 to 6 to 10 to 20 to 25. I'm proud of the fans.
For a minute, I thought I recognized one of them. I was like, do I know her?
Like, hey, wow, you know, we watched a lot of your content during a tough time, and it really helped us. And that's always really nice, especially when we do our like live shows. You notice that it's very fast.
Yeah, they did a live show in New York recently. I wasn't able to attend, but
in the most positive sense.
I'm very happy with the progress that we've made over here at Watcher over these past 4.5 years. But it feels like we are just at the point where we've hit a bit of a ceiling in terms of what YouTube is able to offer.
More than 50% of our business is run by advertising. We are relying on
as with most channels.
to pay the bills, to run this office, to make beautiful content for all of you guys out there. Unfortunately, over time, the deals that we were getting in 2019, 2020 are looking a lot different than they are today. We're making something for two audiences. We're making it for the fans, all of you out there, and we're also making it to please the advertisers. It's difficult to make the stuff that we want to make and also then appeal to the advertisers as well.
It costs a certain amount to
it's
make content in the way that we
it's nice to hear them being so honest about it too.
Screen that we feel adheres to a certain level of quality that you would find on, say, a Netflix or something like that. But in doing so, it does cost a certain amount. Like, for example, a Ghost Files episode. First, we have to travel to the location itself. We have to pay the location fee. We have to pay freelance staff that comes to help us shoot that when we're shooting in the studio. We have to pay for the studio to shoot the actual episode in. Then we have to pay for post. Before that, we also have to do the pre-production of the episode. And when you add that all up, we're talking about an end of a season that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Jesus. Wow.
Complaining that is the bed we've made. Everyone has different missions they're marching towards on YouTube. Ours was
That's expensive, man. Especially for an independent like production like this.
Like, hey, maybe television shows aren't meant for YouTube. Perhaps we should find a different place that's better.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
And can support the
I feel like television shows do well on YouTube.
so that we're not constantly running around trying to find sources of revenue to support the model.
We work from the other direction here, which is like we start first by looking at what we want to say and think about and talk about, and that's always informed our content, which is why I think our
Puppet History is a great show. You guys should check it out if you haven't before.
We've trended quite a few times, okay? But that's never, you know, that's never our goal. And I think by that token, YouTube has never been like the perfect fit for us.
All that being said, we have realized that it would be great if we could find a way to rely less on advertising, not make it such a big part of our business. So
they're going to do their own subscription model?
Few months and years, like how can we make this business more sustainable? How can we make something where we can make the things that we want to make for all of you guys and not be worried about all the other forces that are here? In terms of where this company is going and where I believe that we can be the most successful, YouTube is no longer the place for that.
For anybody who's watched or supported us to this point, truly, thank you. The goal was always to make television caliber quality content.
This is kind of sad.
Not just for YouTube, but for you guys. I guess we just hope you guys follow us this one last time.
Aw, he was going to cry. Yeah, this is kind of sad. It's like an end of an era.
To our very own independent streaming service, Watcher.
That's a
Watcher is
big,
ad-free
big
independent
undertaking.
service dedicated to providing you guys the television caliber content that you know and love. But you're probably wondering, how is it going to be different than the YouTube experience?
The new streamer, I think, is a place that reflects what our content is. High quality series in season form, beautifully organized, ad-free. It's what we were destined to be.
First of all, bigger and better content.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to improve Ghost Files. I mean, I'm very happy with how the show has
I don't know about
produced so
this.
far, but the streamer is going to give us an opportunity to really add to it from a format standpoint, but we'll also be able to take bigger swings and go international, like we're going to the UK and we're going to Scotland. Also, the more resources we have, the more time we could focus on making the show better. And every season of that show, I want it to be better than the last. And I'm very excited for season 3, which you guys will see on the streamer.
The advent of this streamer has allowed me to bring the gang back together.
That's true.
Adam,
Your pals.
Andrew, the old friends from Worth It, and we're going to be launching.
Oh, they're bringing back those guys from BuzzFeed, huh?
Called Travel Season.
Were you excited
Wow.
to work with Steven again?
Yeah. After 12 seasons of Worth It, it feels great to make something that is very similar and based on a lot of those experiences, but we get to dispense with all the stuff that we don't like.
So if you want to catch that, you can watch it on May 31st. It's going to be a full 6-episode season, and you can watch it all if you remember.
It's shot very nicely,
And not only
from what
will
it seems.
new fresh shows, we're going to put it up to the members to resurrect a show from the past. There are a lot of shows that maybe didn't do phenomenally on YouTube that would be performing perfectly fine on a streamer.
What a weird, wonderful idea.
What a weird, wonderful idea that would be.
I'm excited about the prospect of bringing on some new talent, some new faces, and making content around them. And, being able to shape some shows that don't always involve us is something I'm really excited about.
I'm really curious what the end goal is here. Are they really want to build like their own network?
Why not? That should be our slogan. Why not?
I mean, yeah, I imagine he'll pop in.
Yeah,
Yeah, whether you like it or not.
that's fair. But all this to say, you'll still occasionally see us on YouTube. We're going to post trailers for our shows there. We're
Yeah, they're going to use YouTube as their advertising.
on there. But if you want to watch the full seasons of all of our content, the streamer will be the exclusive home for all of that starting May 31st.
Steven,
That's
talk
really
about
soon, too.
What's this price?
You can become a member of Watcher for $5.99 a month or $50.
$5.99 a
The
month.
price low enough where anybody and everybody is able to afford it, but it also has to support the things that we do here. So that was the number that just made the most sense for the streamer.
Wow.
You can share it, with your friends.
That's true.
What are we gonna do?
Keep your eyes glued on all of our social channels. We'll be announcing some sweet opportunities to win merch, a free annual subscription, and a bunch of other wacky stuff from us. For those of you that sign up before May 31st, because we are going to have a little bit of a beta period, which will be launching today, actually.
Right now, you
Right
can sign up
now.
right now.
As of today, the release of this video, April 19th,
Think of this beta period as a soft launch, an opportunity for early adopters to sign up, help us work out the kinks, and provide feedback to make it a better experience for everybody.
Yeah, the beta will be a transitional period where you'll still be able to access content on YouTube, but beginning maybe.
I don't know about this. I have a lot of things to say. I want to be supportive, but at the same time, I have a lot of things to say about this.
Vote to bring back your favorite show. And not only that, but we're giving members who sign up before May 31st a whole 30% off their annual subscription.
So if you want to become a member,
Is that for the first year or forever?
You can click on the link somewhere in the video, but it's just watchyourtv.com. Super easy.
That's right. WatchYourTV.com.
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 Watch your TV.
Watch your TV.
Watch your TV. Watch Watcher on your TV.
WatchYourTV.com.
In all seriousness, we really couldn't be more excited for you guys to join us on this next chapter, hopefully. We'd love for you guys to come along with us. But at the same time, this is our final goodbye to YouTube. I
Wow.
don't know if it's our goodbye to you. I hope it's not. But if it is, I do want to say thank you for supporting us all along the way.
Your viewership has allowed us to do all these wonderful things that we've done these past 4 years. And we hope that you'll come
This
along
is crazy. I really can't believe this.
Yeah.
Build this thing out even bigger. That's the hope, at least. But either way, it's been fun. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, crazy, 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 crazy stuff. So they're leaving YouTube and they're going to essentially they just created their own streaming platform where they're going to host all of their shows, their backlog of shows, and they're going to be introducing new shows, bringing back some shows that they did on BuzzFeed, and continue on the seasons of their existing shows like Ghost Files and Mystery Files. Mystery Files just ended their season recently. So it makes a lot of sense now why we didn't hear anything about a season 3 or why we haven't heard anything about season 3 of Ghost Files yet, because they're saving it for their new streamer platform. And from what it sounds like, they're still going to use YouTube as like their clips channel to provide clips and probably use it as advertising and such. Which is smart. I think they should do that. They should always have a presence on YouTube. Currently, right now, the Watcher channel on YouTube has 2.93 million subscribers. Right? Now, I don't know what their membership level is, because they do have a membership tier that you could support them with. I think they turned it off recently, but they used to have that. Plus, they have their own merch and all. Look, they have a huge following. They really have a huge following. If you go to their channel on YouTube, their videos, basically, they get around 100 million views per video, for the most part. At least the major series that they do, like Mystery Files, Ghost Files. For example, the last episode of Mystery Files that they did that went live 6 days ago has close to 1 million views. The episode before that, same number. The episode before that, 1.1 million. Episode before that, 1.1 million, 1.9, 1.3. So they do well views-wise. When you look at their show Ghost Files, now the last episode of season 2 of Ghost Files has 3 million views. I'm just looking at it up here in their YouTube channel. The episode before that, 2.4 million views. The episode before that, 2.4 million views, 3 million. So they do well views-wise. It's their tiny things that they do, like Too Many Spirits, which I'm a fan of. I love that series that they do. That doesn't seem to get a lot of views. And then they do a lot of one-off stuff. They basically like to do stuff that they like to do. Puppet History doesn't seem to get a lot of views for the most part, but I see things here 2 million, 1.1 million. So they get a decent amount of views. So I'm wondering, what is it about advertising that they're not getting enough money for? I think it all boils down to them. They're spending too much money on their production. That's what it looks like to me. And when you watch their videos are very well produced, great scenes, great like sets, great studio, great graphics and special effects for their transitions, for their on-screen graphics. And they have a team of people that they work with. It's not just them three. I mean, sometimes these members will pop up from time to time and be on screen. They'll have segments on screen, and especially when they do Ghost Files, you could see like he said, they hire freelancers to join them on these things on set. But it sounds to me, honestly, if I'm going to be completely honest here, they're spending way too much money on their productions and overhead. That's what it sounds like to me. And if they were able to somehow find a way to cut those costs, then they should still be able to flourish on YouTube. Because there's a lot of channels on YouTube like theirs that gets the same amount of views, and they seem to be doing well for themselves. But it's just, I don't know what it is that they're seeing on their end where they're suffering financially. Starting a streaming service on their own is a very risky move and very ballsy. I got to hand it to them. It's a great idea, but now they're relying on the fan base to basically fund their new venture. And the way YouTube works, and I mean, I've been on the platform now, and granted, my channel is very tiny. I've been on the platform now for 4 years. The majority of your subscribers are passive subscribers, meaning that they clicked on that subscribe button to support you because maybe they liked one or two of your videos. Your videos show up on their feed often, and then they just decide to subscribe. They may come back and watch some of your videos, and then that's it. Roughly 5 to 10% of subscribers to your channel are your reoccurring people. Those are the people that will watch basically 90% of the videos that you post. So those are your returning viewers, right? Which, if you think about it, 5% of 2.9 million is a lot, right? Now, maybe cut that in half as to those who are supporters. Those are the ones who will donate, maybe join your Patreon, maybe sign up for a membership. And I'm being very generous about that, about half of that. It could be even like a quarter, to be honest with you. So it's not a lot. So by branching off and doing their own streamer, they're hoping that this group of people will follow them to that, pay the $60 a year or the $5.99 a month, which sounds like a lot of money. But it aligns with how much people are charging for like YouTube memberships. But I guess on the bright side, they get all of that money. They're getting all of that. YouTube takes a cut all the time. Patreon takes a cut. So at least all the money that people are going to be spending on subscriptions will go mainly 100% to them. And of course, their overhead costs and whatever server costs and whatever costs that are involved in the platform that they're using. But then, they're hoping to pay the talent. They're bringing these two guys back from BuzzFeed. They're traveling a lot more. They're going to the UK for Ghost Files to do some shoots there. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to be able to sustain that model and still be able to pay everybody and pay all their overhead costs. It's a big undertaking. It really is. I of course wish them the best and I support them 1,000%. But what I've seen and I'm going to bring it back to Mystery Science Theater 3000, because like I said, they did a similar thing several years ago where they started their own streaming service, 24/7 Mystery Science Theater 3000. What are they currently doing now? They have live feeds on their YouTube channel that basically acts like a 24/7 broadcast channel. And they are just showing episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000 24/7. And the content refreshes like every 3 to 4 days or 3 to 5 days, because I think you're allowed to live stream consecutively on YouTube for maybe 3 days, 2 or 3 days, before they automatically cut your stream and then you kind of have to restart again. That's what they're doing now. They still, from what I remember or what I recall, they still have their streaming service. I don't know what their numbers look like and all that, but right now that's what they're doing on YouTube also. And they use that also as an advertisement for their streaming service for their upcoming season of Mystery Science Theater 3000, which I think no longer is on Netflix. I think they don't have that contract with Netflix anymore. So it's just very interesting to see how they've, taken their model and what they're currently doing now. So maybe in the future, we will possibly see Watcher doing maybe a similar situation too, to kind of help with their advertising, help with getting awareness out there, because not a lot of people are going to jump from YouTube to another streaming service. I was reading some of the comments before, and I saw some comments saying, I love you guys. I've supported you guys this whole time. Huge fan, but I find it very difficult to be able to come up with a good reason why I would spend another amount of money every month or every year on another separate streaming service, especially when you don't know how frequent the content is going to be refreshed on that service, because they're doing this on their own. It's just them. Unless they start teaming up with other YouTubers and they create their own network, then I don't know if it justifies me going to a separate streaming platform that maybe right now I can only watch on my desktop or on my phone, pay $5, $6 a month, or maybe $60 a year to watch maybe a new episode every 1 or 2 weeks. I don't know if that's worth it to me, even though I love these guys. I'm a huge fan of these guys. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens here. And at the end of the day, I just wish them the best of luck. I really do, because I'm a huge fan of theirs. And it's going to be very interesting to see how it all shapes up for them. And I hope it works out at the end. I really do. But that's big, big news dropping this morning. That, again, if you're tuning in now and you missed out what I just covered and what I just watched, Watcher Entertainment, I don't know, it's just Watcher, Shane Madej, Ryan Bergara, Steven, I forget his last name again. Sorry, Steven. The guys who originated on BuzzFeed with their awesome shows, branched out onto their own YouTube channel, are now branching off again and creating their own streaming service. And they're taking all of their shows and they're going to put it up there. And if you want to see new episodes, that's where it's going to be. And they're going to still maintain their YouTube channel just for clips and trailers, essentially advertising their platform and the shows on their platform. So big news there. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's quite a big deal if you're a fan of these guys. So very, very interesting stuff. I can't believe they're doing that. All right. The next bit of news here, or the big news of the week, according to myself, now I'm strictly speaking about myself, is Quentin Tarantino's 10th and supposedly final film. So just to recap, I've kind of said this stuff earlier when I started streaming. Quentin Tarantino, in his own mind, set up a life goal, a career goal, that he was only going to direct 10 films. 10 full-length feature films. not including the thing he did with Robert Rodriguez, Grindhouse. We're not going to include that because that was like a joint venture. But his own solo directed films, he was only going to direct 10. And everyone's been speculating what's going to be his 10th and final film. And he announced, I believe it was last year or the year before that, that his final film was going to be called The Critic, or The Movie Critic, I should say. Speculation abound about what the movie was going to be about. Some people were saying that, oh, maybe this is going to be his take on the movie critic, kind of career, landscape, industry. Maybe this will be his chance to kind of take a stab at all the bad criticisms that he's gotten throughout his whole career. Maybe it's to pay homage to the critics that he's loved growing up. We already know he's a huge cinephile and he loves movies. So maybe this is homage to like Siskel and Ebert and Leonard Maltin and all those critics from the past. We don't know, but people like, Brad Pitt was attached to this or potentially attached to this. There were rumors about maybe we would have seen Leonardo DiCaprio in this movie. And I'm saying all this in past tense because it was announced or it's being reported that he is no longer making this movie. After sitting on this piece of news for months and months and months, it looks like he's dropping this and scrapping this idea. And it's unknown as to why that is, but I'm going to read this article here on The Hollywood Reporter that basically kind of tells more about what's going on here. So I just want to formulate this so that people on the Shorts feed can see this. Quentin Tarantino no longer making The Movie Critic as final film. Brad Pitt has been in talks to star in the film as his once upon a time in Hollywood character Cliff Booth. So it'll sound like it was going to be a reoccurring character that Brad Pitt was going to play in this potential film that he was going to do. Quentin Tarantino is going back to the drawing board for his 10th and final film. The auteur had been preparing to start shooting The Movie Critic this year, but is backing away from the project, sources tell The Hollywood Reporter. Tarantino has been honing The Movie Critic for months. Set in 1977 California, it initially drew inspiration from a cynical movie critic that the filmmaker grew up reading. See, so it was kind of like along those lines. But sources say it morphed along the way into a film that would feature Brad Pitt as Cliff Booth, the stuntman he portrayed in an Oscar-winning performance in Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It is unclear if the film was going to be a prequel or a 1970s set sequel to Hollywood. But in recent weeks, Tarantino had a change of heart again and moved away from the film entirely. The project was going to shoot for one day in August to qualify for a $20.5 million California tax credit before it began production in earnest in early 2025. That is now no longer on the table. No studio was attached to The Movie Critic, which becomes the latest project to fall by the wayside for Tarantino. He previously worked on an R-rated Star Trek movie for Paramount that did not come to fruition. There was speculation that Sony, which released Hollywood, would be a natural home for Tarantino's latest. The Hollywood Reporter first broke the news of the feature more than a year ago in March, and it has been the subject of much speculation given Tarantino's pledge to retire from directing after making one final project, his 10th. He has made 9 films if you count the 2-part Kill Bill movies as one feature. He has long maintained that he wants to go out on top of the game. In 2012, he told Playboy, quote, "I want to stop at a certain point. Directors don't get better as they get older. Usually the worst films in their filmography are those last 4 at the end. I'm all about my filmography, and one bad film fucks up 3 good ones. I don't want that bad, out-of-touch comedy in my filmography. The movie that makes people think, oh man, he still thinks it's 20 years ago. When directors get out of date, it's not pretty." Tarantino is expected to continue working in the creative fields even after he makes one last feature. He has suggested directing limited series or plays could be in his future. If you do not know or you were not aware, Tarantino at one point did do a Broadway play or an off-Broadway play back in the late 90s, I want to say. That was when, at that time, I was actually working at Starbucks in Times Square. And Tarantino came into my shop one night to order coffee and pastries. It was a surreal moment. Tarantino is also now a novelist, publishing a novelization of Hollywood in 2021. Among its revelations was a deeper understanding of Cliff Booth's backstory and psychology. And that's where the article ends right there. So a very interesting thing and situation that Tarantino finds himself in. What's happening here? Is he getting cold feet? Did he get, writer's block? Is he struggling, trying to figure out how he's going to formulate this story? I don't know. It could be a multitude of reasons why this is happening to him. I think it's also mainly because since this is his final film, I think he is putting a lot of pressure on himself to make sure that it is the film that he wants. And maybe due to timing and maybe stresses, and maybe also because of the lack of studio, hopping on board to be the main studio that will release and kind of help produce this film. Maybe he's feeling that pressure, and maybe he feels the need to go back to the drawing board and maybe to tackle a different subject matter. I don't know. It's very interesting. It sounded like a project I would have loved to see come into fruition, because it sounds like a perfect thing for Tarantino to talk about. Movie critics. He is a filmmaker. He loves film. He is a student of film. I loved, every time he used to tell stories about the times he used to work in a video rental store and how he would watch all the movies. And he is, again, he is a student. He'll bring up like these references just off the cuff. And it's crazy in-depth detailed knowledge that he has of the film industry. So what better way to end his career by making a movie about film criticism? I think that would have been awesome to see and to watch on the big screen. But what's going to be next for him now? Is he going to go back and maybe explore Star Trek? I know I've seen a lot of activity online about this whole story, and people saying like, oh, now we could finally have him go back to Star Trek, and maybe he could now finally finish his Star Trek project. I don't know if that's what he would want to finish his career off with, and doing something like that. I don't know. It just sounds weird to me. It'll be interesting, to say the least. But it is just, I don't know what it is, but I think knowing that this is his 10th movie, his final movie, I think there's just way too much pressure being put upon him. And maybe he's getting cold feet. I don't know. Now, another interesting thing, there's an article from The Hollywood Reporter that kind of looks more into the whole 10 movie retirement plan and how it just seems very flawed. And this is more of like their take on the whole situation. And they put out an article called Quentin Tarantino's 10 movie retirement plan has some flaws. With Tarantino abandoning the movie critic, it's time to take another look at his 10th and final movie idea. So I'm going to read this article because it sounds interesting to me, and maybe we can get some insights here as to what's really happening overall. For several years now, Quentin Tarantino has been adamant that he plans to make a single 10th and final movie, which will no longer be The Movie Critic. Some of his fans were relieved when this news broke yesterday. The Movie Critic originally sounded like a nostalgic character study, more epilogue-y, as Tarantino once put it, while his fans particularly loved the director's more pulpy, genre-driven fare. The result would have almost certainly been great, but would it have been great enough to be Tarantino's last film? More details about the decision are likely still to come. Still, one wonders, would Tarantino have abandoned the movie if there wasn't so much writing on it? See, this is exactly what I was alluding to. And I think this is really where all of this is stemming from. His many statements about quitting film directing have suggested he's extremely focused on protecting his legacy, which seems like a downright masochistic way of putting an enormous amount of pressure on yourself. A 10th and final film should not just be good, but be career-capping fantastic. See, this is exactly what I'm saying. I think he is freaking out. He is really freaking out. and he's trying to figure out like what would be that perfect final film of his. And I think he's having a hard time believing that the movie critic would have been just that. Oh man, it's just so fascinating to read and to think about. All right, the article continues to say here, in a way, the retirement idea has always seemed ill-fitting. Tarantino is, for all of his obvious artistic talent, a crowd-pleasing filmmaker. Yet, it's hard to find a Tarantino fan who loves the idea of him hanging up his hat. Many are skeptical he'd stick with it. If you really love to do something, and you're insanely talented at doing it, would you really just walk away forever? Stephen King declared he was retiring in 2002 and has since published 26 novels and seemingly billions of tweets. Yes, he is a very active person on X. Many ponder what movie Tarantino will make instead. There are a lot of choices available just from projects that he's previously developed. There's that Star Trek movie idea, but should he really end his career with a franchise film? There's Kill Bill Volume 3. But should his final movie be the third entry of an already satisfying story rather than something new? You're seeing the problem, right? The 10th and final label adds so much weight. And when you have a career as stellar as Tarantino's, what can ever be enough? What's my next movie is a challenging decision. What is the last movie I'm ever going to make is a crushingly difficult decision. Arguably, the best way to make 10 movies and end your career is not to tell anyone your plan until after the movie comes out. This way, you can be sure that the film is loved and you don't have to make another to try and end your career on a high note. Announcing 10th and final before you even have a shooting script, well, that's a real high wire act. Though admittingly, genius marketing, nothing excites consumers like scarcity. Who wouldn't line up to see the last and final effort of a beloved filmmaker? So that's one, the article continues to say, so that's one problem with Tarantino's retirement plan. The unreasonable pressure it adds to everything about it and to Tarantino most of all. But let's also take a look at the logic underpinning Tarantino's argument. He has said that great directors' films invariably decline in quality. And then it goes back to his quote about, I don't like working to diminishing returns. I know film history, and from here on in, directors do not get better. It's like Sick Boy's universal theory of life in Trainspotting. Well, at one time, you've got it, and then you lose it, and it's gone forever. All walks of life. Sick Boy wasn't wrong. While there are many exceptions, creatives of all stripes generally peak and then decline. Example, every band you've ever liked. That's a great way to put it. One of my favorite bands of all time have been Weezer. I remember listening to Weezer back in high school and being introduced to the Blue Album for the first time. I was like, these guys, they're speaking my language. They are singing and they're making music based off of the things that I am aware of, being a geek and all that. Then their second album is a triumph. A lot of Japanese influence in it, and just it was like a rock opera from beginning to end. And then album to album, things started getting less interesting, more poppy, more mainstream, and then it really became mainstream, and that's where it started to lose me. So that's a very good way to put it. Just recently, last weekend at Coachella, we had the reunion of No Doubt after so many years not performing together live on stage. The big hullabaloo about No Doubt coming back live, performing live on the big stage of Coachella. And when I watched it, I was like, I've seen this concert already before. Why? Because I've seen No Doubt perform live 5 times. And the last 2 times have been kind of same versions of itself. And what I saw at Coachella was exactly the same show I seen them do 2 other times before. Was it anything different? No. Was it as exciting? Not really. Because it just didn't seem to be anything new. And it just seemed very formulaic at that point. So I thought it was kind of blah at the end of the day. Very disappointing. So that is a great analogy and kind of comparison to put it. All right, going back to the article here. But Quentin Tarantino has not shown any signs of decline. In fact, some consider his latest movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, to be his best. I wouldn't say that, but okay. people can have their opinions. Moreover, the idea that 10 movies is a correct cutoff is just plain silly. If Christopher Nolan stopped at 10 movies, he would never have made Oppenheimer, bam, which finally nabbed him Best Director and Best Picture Oscars. Tarantino seems to consider Martin Scorsese the best living filmmaker. But if Scorsese had stopped at 10, he would have never even made Goodfellas, let alone The Departed and The Wolf of Wall Street. If Steven Spielberg stopped at 10, he wouldn't have made his Oscar-winning masterpiece Schindler's List. And forget about fan favorite Jurassic Park. But I think that's also an unfair comparison there too, because Scorsese and Spielberg come from the directing well of they are active directors and they do multiple projects in a given decade. Sometimes they'll have one movie a year. Sometimes they'll have multiple movies a year. They come from a different pool of directors, kind of almost old school Hollywood, where they are kind of almost tasked to direct a movie almost once a year at one point in their lives. Not so much anymore. They've slowed down, obviously, as they got older. So it's kind of an unfair comparison because for a director that started off in the late 70s, early 80s, they could easily reach 10 films by the end of the 80s or in the early 90s. And most of these directors have seen more success going into the 90s, early 2000s. And they still do great films now. Like I was a huge fan of Wolf of Wall Street. I was also a huge fan of The Irishman. And I know that's very debatable and not a lot of people will agree with that. But, I really enjoyed that movie. Spielberg, his last movie was The Fabelman. And I thought that was a very well done movie. Not one of his best, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Also, I would argue that Spielberg is also an equally great producer. And he knows how to work and collaborate with other people. And he produces films that are very well known and extremely, very, very entertaining and successful. I don't know if Tarantino could be a producer, but I will say I really love his passion for film and how he wants to preserve film. He bought out the Beverly Center or the Beverly Cinemas in California. And now that that's like his own personal independent movie theater. And he supports indie film there. And, it's a great way to kind of watch older films there. So I love when he does stuff like that. So he definitely has something that he can do outside of directing. There's definitely a lot of avenues he could explore. The article continues to say, Scorsese, Spielberg, and Nolan are arguably three of the best directors alive, all made their best movies after their 10th. The same can be said for some of the yesteryear filmmakers Tarantino adores. Billy Wilder would have never made Some Like It Hot or The Apartment if he stopped at 10. So as a figure to end your career on before falling into a sad hackery, 10 is demonstrably not a magic number. Tarantino's age, 61, admittedly makes for a better argument, and he has cited his age as a factor in the decision, saying a 30-year career seems ideal. Spielberg was comparatively a spring chicken at the age of 46 when he made Schindler's List, but being in your 60s is not what it used to be compared to the days of Tarantino's heroes Douglas Sirk and Sergio Leone, both of whom had a modest number of directorial credits. And while the ravages of age are a forceful factor that we all must fight against, it's also inarguable that a filmmaker's style matures and evolves as they make more movies. Article continues to say that all of this isn't meant to be a quixotic attempt to badger Tarantino into changing his mind. Okay, it's probably exactly that. Tarantino has said correctly that it's unfair for the industry and fans to have an attitude like, well, we'll tell you when you're done. You don't tell us when you're done. The man doesn't owe us anything, and only he truly knows how much gas is left in the tank. Still, there's one last point to make, and admittedly a superficial one, and it goes like this. The whole 10 thing, Tarantino is a rebel filmmaker, and there's nothing rebellious about the number 10. 10 makes one think of online top 10 lists and 10 commandments and Olympic competition scores. 10 is mainstream and conformity. 10 isn't even the coolest number in its numeric neighborhood. You don't know what number is more cool? You know what number is more cool? 12, as in The Dirty Dozen, one of Tarantino's favorite films. Actually, I agree with that too. That's why I always do top 12 instead of top 10 or top 11. Because, you know, sometimes I like to go more beyond an extra mile. Plus, I always like to consider it 12 months in a calendar year. So like everything that I put on the top 12 list, it's like they own their own month. So if you were to buy a calendar of the best movies of whatever this and that, I think of it as a calendar because every movie has a dedicated month to it. That's kind of how I look at it. Or 13, which has some black magic quality, while 10 is so suburban. And when you think of what would have happened to the careers of great modern filmmakers if they quit at 10, it's like that Sean Connery as Henry Jones Jr. snarked to his son, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, "You left just when you were becoming interesting." A great line and one that wouldn't exist if Spielberg had retired at 10 movies. Again, another great point to that, and that's how the article ends there. So the article pretty much goes to everything that I was talking about and I was kind of alluding to before. I think this whole 10 thing is really putting unnecessary pressure upon Tarantino. And it's unnecessary. I kind of wish he would just do what he wants to do without putting this whole moniker on him. He's kind of like a geek when it comes to that. It's like he holds himself to this kind of goal and this standard that he set for himself because he is a film geek and everything about him is very geeky. And it's a very geeky thing to do, which again, I'm not trying to poo-poo on at all. I think it's just very interesting that this is the approach that he's taking. And the article says a lot of cool, interesting things too. It's like, if he is such a rebel filmmaker, I mean, think about it. Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, those movies were just so against the grain when it came out at the time. And I always said that if it wasn't for Pulp Fiction, my eyes would not have opened up more to the whole world of cinema. I would have still been a generic moviegoer. I would have still been someone who just watches the blockbusters and then that's it. Maybe some of the films I watched growing up, but I would have not gone out and explored other films within other genres that I'm not familiar with, and even give attention to indie films. Like Pulp Fiction and Clerks are the two movies that I really account to opening my eyes to film more. And for someone who's like that, I mean, Jackie Brown, who in their right mind at that time would have made a movie like Jackie Brown, a kind of homage to blaxploitation movies and films. And for a guy who's white to do something like that, I mean, that is just an unheard of feat. And he did it very well, in my opinion. Jackie Brown is like my underrated, one of my most favorite Tarantino films that he's done. So it's just so interesting that he has to put this thing upon him. But it is not very rebellious to kind of go out on 10. If he wanted to do something rebellious and different, he would have just put out a movie, and then immediately after the movie's out, he's like, that was my final movie. I'm retiring from filmmaking. And then that's it. Or he could be, you know, just regular Tarantino, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, hey, guess what? I've directed a film. Here it is. And guess what? That's my last film. You know, be something rebellious like that. Be bold. You know, I feel like this is something that he probably would have explored doing when he was younger. But I guess you also have to rely a lot on like the studio system and who's going to help back your project and who's going to help produce your project. So it is very, very odd to kind of put yourself in that kind of box. At the end of the day, I just want to see Tarantino do Tarantino. I want to see him do the films that he wants to do. I am always going to be there opening night, preview night, screening night, whatever night it is when his new film comes out. And I'm going to be one of the ones or one of the first ones to go and watch it because I love his movies. You know, he has not, in my opinion, made a bad movie ever. And if he wants to go out on top with his 10th and final film, so be it. You know, but why? Why limit yourself to that? You know, creative people, they may not evolve past a certain age, but their passion and hunger never ends. Creative people always feel the need to create something, right? Now, just because in his mind that creators who get up there in age and who find themselves in their late stages in life, a lot of their stuff maybe he considers to be not great, that doesn't mean a lot of other people don't see them as great products. You know, the article points out a lot of great examples of directors, creators, filmmakers who've done stuff in their later years, and they're still just as good as their previous outings. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure in the upcoming weeks, we're going to hear a lot more about Tarantino, a lot more about what he is planning to do, what he wants to do, why he decided to drop this project of his. It would have been great to see. I think it sounds like something that would have been a perfect movie for him to direct. Would it have been a perfect final film? Who knows? You never know, because it's not happening anymore. So, but it's unfortunate. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But whatever Tarantino decides to do, I'm going to be there for it and fully backed up. And I'm sure those of you who are fans of Tarantino will probably think the same way too. All right, give me 1 second, guys. I just am catching up on some stuff. I want to make sure that I'm not missing out on any notifications here that may have caught my eye. My oi, oi, oi. Also, like, for those of you watching, if at any time like a certain topic pops up that maybe just dropped or anything like that, let me know in the chat. I'm always keeping an eye out on the chat to see who is ever, you know, talking or chiming in or whatever the case is. All right. So to close out this Tarantino discussion today, I thought it would be kind of fun to go and create a tier list. And by doing this tier list, I'm going to rank my own personal thought on Tarantino's filmography and what is kind of like, what is his best movies? What are some of his latter movies? So, I mean, we only have 9 to work with here, so it's not going to be a big deal. You know, but I thought it would be kind of fun to kind of do like a tier maker ranked list of Tarantino's movies and all that. So, all right. Going on, Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs, when that first movie came out. So my first Tarantino movie I saw was Pulp Fiction. Once I saw Pulp Fiction and I realized how much I love that movie, I then said to myself, I need to find out what else he's done. And I've heard that he made a movie called Reservoir Dogs. And it was a very interesting premise about these hitmen. They had a job go wrong. And we only know them by their code names. And they're all colors of like the crayon box, right? It's like Mr. White, Mr. Pink, Mr. Brown, all this kind of funny stuff. Great cast, Steve Buscemi, Michael Madsen, list goes on and on, Harvey Keitel. It just goes on and on and on. And it's such a great cast. And what an ending with like the Mexican standoff and all that. Really ballsy, rebellious kind of filmmaking. And a great introduction to see what Tarantino can do. But for me, I would probably put it as an A tier as far as movies are concerned. Hold on, let me just make this a little bigger so that everyone can see. So yeah, so for me, Reservoir Dogs is an A tier film of his. Pulp Fiction, S tier. That movie will go into the history books as probably one of the more influential films of modern cinema. For a lot of filmmakers, for a lot of writers, editors, just in general, this is going to be talked about I'm sure it already is talked about in schoolrooms, in classrooms, in film class. Pulp Fiction, the way that the story is divided into all these different chapters and how everything comes to a full circle closure at the end of it. Fantastic film. The soundtrack. This is one of those movies that made me realize how important soundtracks can be. The soundtrack is a character in the film. And I remember watching an early interview of Tarantino and his approach to filmmaking. I don't think he really does it so much nowadays, or maybe he does, but you really sensed it earlier on in his career. He said that the first thing he thinks about when he's trying to make a film is he thinks of the music. He thinks of the music, he thinks of what kind of music beats he likes, and then he writes the story and creates the film around the music. It made me realize, like, no wonder why the soundtrack and the musical drops work so perfectly in a lot of his scenes, because that's the first thing he thinks about. And to be honest with you, I kind of borrowed that same approach whenever it comes to me doing any kind of videos that I create on the channel, editing. I always think about what would be some great musical drops or musical beats to go along with this stuff. That's kind of how I approach my own editing, how I approach my own stuff. So Pulp Fiction is always going to be an S tier in my opinion there. Jackie Brown, one of his most underrated films. If you ask a lot of people, I think there's going to be a good amount of people who will probably say that this is their least favorite film. I love Jackie Brown. Like I said, it's like an homage to like the blaxploitation type of films back in the day. I love Jackie Brown. I think this is an A tier movie. Very, very underrated. Great performances. You have, Michael Keaton, Sam Jackson. Just such a great cast. And it's a slow story. It is definitely a slow burn. But it reminds me a lot of that type of filmmaking from back in the 70s. And it's and again, for very ballsy for a white guy to create a movie like this. And it was just very well done. Very, very well done. Kill Bill, S tier. Kill Bill, it is just the influences that you see in this movie from all. We already knew that he grew up loving Hong Kong flicks, the action Hong Kong flicks, Kurosawa, all those type of films. This movie has all those signatures around it. And he did his own take on it. The soundtrack, again, is just so brilliant in all throughout this movie. To think that Kill Bill was supposed to be like a 4 to 5 hour singular film that he was forced to cut into 2 because the studio told him to. Did it hurt it? Maybe it hurt part 2, but what we got in part 1 was just bang, bang, bang. It was just like hit after hit after hit. It was just a fantastic, fun, entertaining movie from beginning to end. I would have easily sat through a 3 to 4 hour film in one shot, because just everything was so well done, well directed, the great cinematography, the editing, the performances. Uma Thurman is fantastic. Feet shots aside, like this, she put on a performance that was just unbelievable. Really, really love this film. Which leads to Kill Bill Volume 2, B. Unfortunately, did not maintain that same momentum that Kill Bill Volume 1 had. And I think it is the product and the after effect of splitting this whole movie into 2 parts. And I think it really suffered in Volume 2. It became very slow, very boring at times. Good build-up, good storytelling, but I think it would have flowed so much better if it was just all one film. If he was never forced to have to split this thing up, I think it would have been like an epic 4-hour masterpiece. But I think being forced to split it into 2, and then him having to do additional work on Volume 2 to make it actual full-length feature film, I think it caused it to suffer a bit. What's up, Brew? I hope I'm saying your bra pa. Do you have the N-word pass? No. I don't. Unless you're referring to Tarantino. And yes, I know there's always a lot of controversy about the use of the N-word in his films. I don't necessarily agree with that, to be honest with you. That's kind of like one of the hot takes from him that I don't agree with. But I also don't sit there and count every time and word it's said. Although it is very obvious, especially in a movie like Django, which was just kind of bizarre and interesting choice that he made there in that movie. But if everyone involved in that film, actors, all the the performers, if they were all okay with it, then who's to say, right? But I don't necessarily agree with that take. All right. Death Proof. So this is just one small feature that he made. This is a collaboration with Robert Rodriguez. I thought it was okay. What was it? Death Proof was the one with the car. You had, what's his name? The actor from Big Trouble in Little China. Oh my God, why can't I think of his name right now? But anyway, I thought it was a pretty decent movie. I love the gang, the female gang, with Rosario Dawson. Was that you had Ewan McGregor's wife now? She was also in Scott Pilgrim. Oh man, the names are just like going by me right now. But Death Proof was okay. I would probably say that this is a C. Not my favorite. I think out of all of Tarantino's films, this was probably the weakest for me. Because it wasn't really that. I liked the premise behind it. The execution, maybe not so much so. However, that one stunt that was done with the cars going full speed and you had the lady pretty much strapped onto the front during the whole time. A very well-known stunt woman who needs more recognition. Definitely a very, very fascinating stunt. But I think that was like the major highlight of that entire film. And then that was it. So I will say that's a C. Inglourious Bastards. For me, A. Love that movie. This is one of the first times that Tarantino kind of redid history and has his own take on history, which is a fascinating way of filmmaking and storytelling. And it, follows around this group of guys who are tasked to take out, Hitler and his regime. And I loved how the last moments of the film is just them going ham. How long did they show the head of Hitler getting shot up multiple times? It was just so gratifying in a way to see. And I guess in a way you could kind of say this is like one of those like revenge type films. But it definitely is one of the films that kind of rewrites history just to tell a certain story. And it was the first time that he did something like that. So it was very, very interesting to see. But great filmmaking, editing, great performances all around. Brad Pitt was brilliant in this movie. I love that ragtag crew of guys that he has around him. Very, very fun to see. And it was just such an entertaining movie. I remember I watched this movie. Outside of Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, I've seen all of his movies in the theater. And I remember I was with a date and she was not entirely familiar with Tarantino. So we went to see this movie together. And I remember at the end of the movie, she was at the edge of her seat and she's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe what we just watched. This movie is fantastic." And I'm like, well, you owe it to yourself to see his other movies. Because yeah, this is just one of many that he's directed that is so good. Django. Django was a very interesting movie to speak about Django and the N-word and all that. Jamie Foxx was great in this movie. Leonardo DiCaprio was brilliant. Leo played a character that we've never seen Leo play. A racist plantation owner, slave driver, who was just balls to the wall evil. Just evil. And if it wasn't for his performance, the rest of the movie would have been okay. Going back, when you do a movie like Inglourious Bastards, Kill Bill, Django, you need a villain, that one guy that you are rooting against. and that you would love to see, get his, just catch it at the end. In Glorious Bastards, you had that one guy, played by, you know what? Hold on. I'm going to pull up. Bear with me for a second. Christoph Waltz. Oh my God. Why couldn't I think of his name? Christoph Waltz playing that one guy that choked out the actress and was just pure evil. Shoshana. Remember in the beginning? Shoshana, run, Shoshana. Flee. He was just the epitome of evil. And when you saw that he was finally going to get his due at the end, he was finally going to catch something at the end, you were just elated. You were just so happy. That's what made Inglourious Basterds so good. If it wasn't for Leonardo DiCaprio's performance in Django, the rest of the movie would not have been that great. There wouldn't have been anything to root against. And basically, Django was like a creation of a black superhero, and he was the one who was just, putting justice to all the injustices made to all the slaves at the time, in this Western setting. So if it wasn't for Leo's performance, there would have been no one to root against, and it would have made the entire movie just okay. So with his performance, it made the movie even better. But I will say it's not one of Tarantino's best films. So with that, I'm going to say Django is a C, in my opinion. And again, these are just my takes. You may not agree with all this, but these are just my takes here. The Hateful Eight, loved it, but it's a B. It's not A level like Reservoir Dogs, Jackie Brown, or Inglourious Basterds, but it's definitely B. I would even say it goes before Kill Bill Volume 2. And Django definitely goes before Death Proof. Let me see if I could fix that. There you go. So you can kind of see how they're kind of close in spilling into each other's tiers there. But the one thing I loved about Hateful Eight was just the cinematic presence of it all. When this movie came out, it came out in like 70 millimeter. And it was treated like an old school movie. Because I think the runtime for this was like 3 hours, I think. Which at that time when it came out, we didn't get a lot of movies that were that long. And hold on, let me just look it up. Let me just see. The Hateful Eight. I just want to see. I want to make sure I'm correct on the runtime here. Come on, search. Tell me something. Tell me something good. Runtime. 168 minutes. So I didn't know I had to do math this morning, but that is if 12, 24. Man. 2 hours and 48 minutes. There we go. So yeah, almost 3 hours, right? So the one thing that they did about this movie, and I don't know if they did it in all theaters, but the thing I loved about this screening I went to see this movie was that they had an intermission. Very similar to like what they did in movies in the past. It was such a cinematic event. And the way that it was edited was very cinematic. Plus, it was a chamber movie. And what I mean by that is just another way to say that it just took place in this one location, secluded location. You had these strangers all locked up in this one cabin. And you didn't know what was going to happen. Anything could have happened. Things that happened you weren't expecting to happen. It was just brilliant performances and filmmaking because you're so focused now on the people driving this film. The performances, the dialogue, just brilliant across the board. Very entertaining. I know it wasn't for everybody, but for me, I really enjoyed it all throughout. Very much so. Such a great film there. So Hateful Eight. And what I loved that they did on Netflix was that when it came out on Netflix, they created chapters, and they divided the whole movie into episodic chapters, which was such a brilliant way to do this. So you could watch Hateful Eight as if it was a limited series. And I believe it was divided into like 4 different chapters. They did such a great job in doing that. So well done. And it was like, it presented a different way to watch the movie, which was very enjoyable. So I really, really appreciated that. Which leads us now to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I enjoyed, but I wouldn't say it was one of his better films, personally, for me. So I know this is going to be crazy, but I'm going to say, you know, honestly, now that I'm looking at this, Kill Bill Volume 2 is kind of forgettable. So I think I'm going to actually drop Kill Bill Volume 2 to C, right behind Django. Yeah, right behind Django. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is going to go into the B tier and right behind The Hateful Eight. Yeah. So if we were going to go ranking wise, 1 to 9, Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, Reservoir Dogs, Jackie Brown, Inglourious Bastards, Hateful Eight, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Django, Kill Bill Volume 2, and then Death Proof. I think that is my official ranking and tiering of Tarantino films. And then again, this is just me. I know a lot of you will probably disagree, and you'll have your comments on it. But for me, this is my ranking and tiering of Tarantino's films. And, you know, just like any ranking and any tier list, it's a lot of personal preference. You know, many of you may not have Reservoir Dogs as an A tier. I'm sure a lot of you won't have Jackie Brown as an A tier. But for me, this is what stood out to me the most. And going back to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I love the homage to old school Hollywood. Margot Robbie was great. Brad Pitt, I will say, was a brilliant performance there. There was a lot of controversy about the portrayal of Bruce Lee in the movie. But I love the capturing of that moment of time in Hollywood. And you could tell it was Tarantino's love letter to Hollywood at the time, especially the period. I love the whole Manson family tie-in there. And, you know, just the whole thing on the Hollywood Hills. Just well done filmmaking, well done storytelling, great performances all around. And obviously, if it's a Tarantino movie, you're going to expect great cinematography, great editing, and all the like there. So, but for me, when you compare it to his entire filmography, it's not something that I would consider S or A tier, but B tier, and right behind The Hateful Eight there. So yeah, so that's my ranking of Tarantino films. I'm interested to hear what all of you think if you're watching this on a replay, but this is just my take on it all, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts and comments on it all. So yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, hold on 1 second. Just checking on some notifications. Kind of crazy how we are now in the postseason of the NBA season. I'm happy that my Knicks are in the playoffs again. We'll see how they do in the first round. But the reason why I bring that up is because I'm getting a lot of notifications on my phone about rankings and what to expect in the first round and all that. But yeah, I'm excited. All right. Excuse me while I just look at some things here. As I gather up my thoughts and notes on some of the next things I kind of want to talk about. What? Oh my God, that's so funny. YouTube is a funny platform, man. It really is. How is it that a video of mine so stupid. What's going on here? I want to see who's Universal, Paramount, and Universal. Whoever's managing the Universal Pictures and Paramount Pictures content copywriting system is going on a major tear. So much so that a video I did back in 2022 is now getting flagged. Unreal. Someone needs to freaking get a different hobby, or do something different, because I just don't understand how that works. It's so bizarre to me. All right. Let's see. What else can we talk about? All right. There were a couple of things I did want to kind of review and recap that I saw from this past week. Of course, the big thing that I want to talk about is X-Men 97 episode 6. So X-Men 97 episode 6, we already know what happened in episode 5. What a crazy end to that episode. And to this day, even after watching episode 6, I still say that it was one of my favorite episodes of the season so far. Yes, spoiler alert, Chad, you're right. So what I'm going to do, the spoiler alert tag is now live on the screen. And I guess I should probably do this in the shorts feed too. Here, let me see. I'm going to add text here. Spoilers. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Because you're right. I should let people know that I'm going to be going ham talking about spoilers here. Spoilers! There we go. And I should link this. Sorry. I'm doing a lot of interesting things right now. All right. I think I got it. Do I got it? I think I got it. Spoil me, spoil me, sir.
I'm gonna come.
You blew it! All right. So episode 6, we take a break from all that craziness that happened in episode 5. If you haven't seen it yet, Chad, I know you haven't watched the series yet, and you haven't seen what I thought about episode 5, just go back to my previous stream and you can see it there. It'll eventually be a clip out, so all of that will be available on the channel and all. But we finally take a break from all that crazy madness that happened and that transpired there. And now we go back to the story of Storm and where Storm is currently right now. The last we left Storm, she still doesn't have her powers. She's hanging out and shacking up with Forge, and she comes across this devil owl who's now plaguing her and haunting her. The devil owl took Forge out. Forge is now trying to recuperate in bed, and Storm is trying to deal with this haunting of this devil around her, and still the fact that she has no powers and all. Alongside that story plot point, we have a major reveal that happens here in this episode. So yes, this is indeed spoiler territory. So if you don't want to know about this, I will say wait until the spoiler sign is removed, mute me for now, and then carry on with your business. Big reveal. We're off in space somewhere. We are now with the Shi'ar Empire. I'm not going to explain who they are because there's just too much to explain. If you know X-Men, if you know the mutant comics, and if you know just comic books in general, you know the Shi'ar Empire. And you know those players involved with the Shi'ar Empire. It turns out Professor X ain't dead. He is alive and kicking and shacking up with the Shi'ar Empress or the Shi'ar Empire Empress or whatever you want to call it. Because if you remember how the original series ended, Professor X was supposedly dead. He died. Looks like that was all a fake out. But if you know the comic books, you would know that, because the one thing about the animated show is that they follow a lot of the story beats from the comic books. So obviously, if you don't know the comic books, this will be a major surprise to you. But yes, Professor X is shacking up with some Shi'ar Empress, and you know, they're doing their thing. And reluctantly, he didn't go back to Earth, because you know he wanted, you know, the woman he's shacking up with wants him there selfishly, and he's like, but I owe it to my students to go back and be with them. But she, you know, a good life lesson here too, where she's like, if you are a good teacher, then you also know when to let your students do their thing and take what they've learned from you to carry on moving forward, and to carry on your wisdom and your knowledge. Great point. Makes a great point. You know, and plus she's just horny. The one thing about this season is that there's a lot of horny people here in this season. And a lot of horny people. You know, obviously you have the whole thing with Scott and Jean Grey and or Madeline Pryor, the Jean Grey clone. So a lot of horniness with a threesome involved there. So much so that it's involving mental telepathy cheating. You still have that love triangle between Logan, Jean Grey, and Scott. So you have that going on too. You have another love triangle with Rogue and Magneto and Gambit. Then you have Jubilee loving up on the new kid who looks like is going to be eventually Sunspot, right? Now you have Professor X and his, you know, harem of women, you know, now the Shi'ar Empress or whatever. And the sister doesn't trust him, right? So there's a conflict there. So this whole time, Professor X or Charles Xavier is conflicted, because there's a part of him that wants to go back to Earth, be with his kids, be with his students. And then there's another part of him that loves who he's with and wants to support her and her throne and be the rulers of the Shi'ar Empire, whatever the case is, right? So there's a lot of back and forth going on, all this kind of stuff like that. It gets to the point where they are looking to indoctrinate and solidify the relationship with Professor X and the Shi'ar lady there. And he hesitates. He's like, will you denounce the X-Men? Will you forget that the X-Men are ever part of your life? Because there's a part of the ritual you have to kind of erase parts of your memory and all. And he hesitates. And busts through comes the sister. And she's like, see, I told you. He hesitates. He is not passionate. He doesn't want to be part of us. And it starts off this whole war and scenario, and they all fight about it and blah, 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 this and that. Right? And it creates this big riff. But at the end of the day, Professor X is like, I love you, girl, but I got to go back to my kids. The booty was great, but I can get other booty back on Earth eventually. Because I feel like there's a part of him that just misses, you know, the team. But I also feel like there's a part of him that is wondering what's happening with Magneto, because we don't know what's happening after the big blowout at Genosha, right? You have Rogue that is sad that Remy is apparently dead now. Magneto might be going off the handle because he is so pissed off about what happened. He might, turn into this crazy monstrosity that it just probably wants to get back at everybody at this point, right? So you could tell, Professor X he's thinking stuff. Professor X, he sees things here. The good old noggin. He can see and read things and be like, maybe I should go back to Earth. Like, this booty was great. Oh, believe me, the booty was fantastic. And there's nothing more that I would love to be than to always be around this booty. But, bros before hoes, right? Or kids before tricks. I don't know. I don't know what the saying is. But you could tell he finally decides to go back to Earth. And it looks like that's where we're heading here. And I'm sure that's going to be a huge shock to everybody. Because still everybody's under the impression that this dude's dead. Right? So the rest of the season is going to be bananas. Now let's go back to Storm. I have no power. I am useless. And this damn owl doesn't leave me alone. And this Forge guy who promised he could help me with my powers back, he's dying. He's dying. What am I gonna do? And then there's like this thing. Forge is like, there's this herb you can take. My ancestors told me about it. And it should help you regain your powers and everything. But you have to find it. Really? I can find this thing? Okay, let's look for it. Are you going to be okay? Will you be able to help me find this thing? For you, girl, anything. Again, we have like a romance here. You can kind of tell. Freaking horny ass show this is. So they go to this area. It's a bunch of caves. And, he's struggling. He's like, oh, I don't know how much further I can make it. It's like, don't worry, my darling. I will look for it myself. How am I going to do this? Well, that's the problem. Because I know how claustrophobic you are. And you have to go through there. And it's this little tiny cave. And she's like, damn you! You tricked me! You blew it! I have to do this, but you know what? I'm going to do it. So she's crawling, and you can tell she's freaking out. She's like, oh, I hate tight spaces. No. Then she's hearing voices, and this damn owl, just like, ha, 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 ha. I see you're struggling. Oh, are you going to do it? You're not going to do it. Oh, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. And essentially, it turns out like this spirit is basically all of Storm's fears culminated into this evil being, into this evil entity, right? And all Storm has to do, good old Aurora there, get over it. Just keep trucking, push through. And she sees the whole herby thing is right there and grasps, but she can't get to it because she's just like, oh, tight spaces. Oh, this owl thinks, oh, I'm gonna eat you, I'm gonna eat you, I'm gonna eat you, I'm gonna get you. And then she's like, fuck it. You don't scare me. I'm gonna do this. I'm Storm. Now, I don't remember if she actually got the herb, but all of a sudden her powers come back. And I trust me, I was awake. I wasn't under the influence of anything. At least I don't think so. But out of nowhere, she's finally getting her powers back. So I think this whole time she had it in her. It's just she had to will it to come back. She had to believe in herself. She had to pull everything from within. Because I don't remember her eating any herb or sucking anything or drinking anything. But she just willed it, and all of a sudden, the clouds formed around and lightning starts shooting everywhere. And I am Storm! And in an instant, she transforms. And, in the process, she, kind of destroys the evil owl. And like, no, you weren't supposed to believe. I believe I am powerful. Now, this version of Storm, if you remember, this is the white costume Storm that we got in the cartoons. With kind of like the shaved head, semi-mohawk-ish, right? Great look. Loved it look. But now, all of a sudden, she transforms. She grows her hair out in an instant. Whoosh! Hair grown out, ponytail and all, held up by this thing. And then, boom, the black and yellow outfit starts coming out. It's like she transforms, like, with the arm sleeve thingies, and I'm just like, yes, we're getting OG Storm. She's like, I am Storm, and she's flying all over, and she's like got the wind controlled, and she's controlling the lightning, and now she's okay. Yeah. But I love that we got the classic, my personal favorite Storm outfit. The good old, like, Angela Bassett looking Storm. With the long hair, the headband, the black outfit, with the flowy, freaking sleevey thingies. With the yellow trim. Classic Storm. She got her powers back. Her hair's all grown out. All done up. So Storm's back. And that's basically what happened in this episode. It had one of those like interesting cappers at the end that will lead into the next episode. But I'll be straight up honest with you. I don't remember it. It's been a week, guys. My memory is just so effed. And I've been struggling with allergies and lack of sleep that my memory is just really effed up right now. But it was interesting. It was an interesting lead up into the next episode, whatever that episode is going to be like. But you basically get the gist of it. Professor X is alive. He's coming back to Earth. Storm finally got her powers back. There you go. We are still trying to figure out what happened on Genosha and who was involved in it. Oh, that's what it was. Oh, boom. So the end capper was this scientist who lent his DNA or his schematics for master mold so that whoever tasked him to do what he had to do created the giant kaiju sentinel that destroyed Genosha. And you could tell he's running. He's like, I did everything you asked. What else do you want from me? And then you just hear the voice like, the world will know to be afraid of Sinister. And it's still Mr. Sinister. He is still the mastermind behind all this stuff happening. He is still the major threat of this season. And he is the one thing that the X-Men are going to have to fight against. So there you go. That was the end capper there. So a great episode. Very entertaining episode. Great to see Professor X back. Although I would have been okay if he never came back, to be honest with you. I love seeing Storm get her powers back. I love having her back in her classic OG outfit. I mean, how can you not like this Storm outfit? Come on now. Come on now. Hold on, I'm going to bring it up. It's so funny how the image results give me cosplayers instead of the comic books. But it's this. How can you not love that OG style outfit with the cape and all. That's the Storm. That's my Storm, son. Here's another version of it. Oh, this is a toy. What the hell? Why is this going for $42.99? Crazy eBay prices. But yeah, that's the Storm. She's back, Jack. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting rest of the season. Especially now that we got Professor X back. Storm is back to full strength. And the aftermath of what happened on Genosha. So it's going to be an interesting ride for sure. But yeah, that was basically episode 6 there. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And I can't wait. This is the only show that I'm watching week to week once new episodes come out. The only show. Because it is worth watching. Very, very much so. And I'm enjoying every minute of it. And yes, Chad, you should go watch it. Highly, highly recommend. Okay, how's everyone doing? Talking a lot this morning. I mean, I've been pretty much off the whole week, so I feel like I have a lot to catch up on. A lot to catch up on. I mean, there's a lot of news bits. It's Monday? Are you sure about that, Chad? I think it's Friday.
It's Friday, Friday, gotta get down on Friday.
It's Friday. I don't want to get copyright. Let's go. You should be celebrating that it's Friday. Feels like Monday? Oh, that's terrible. Sorry for you. That's not a good feeling at all. Every day is Monday except for Sunday. Oh, I will say that I did watch the first episode of Fallout, the new Fallout series. So, funny thing, and I canceled my membership to Amazon Prime recently, maybe 2 months ago, because I don't really order much from Amazon these days, and I noticed that I don't really use Prime Video often at all. Now, I know you could pay for the whole year, so I guess my yearly subscription was coming up. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't go through with like $130. At least not right now. So I just canceled it and I didn't renew. But Fallout is on Prime Video, and the first episode is free to watch on Prime Video because they put it under their freebie service so that you could kind of preview it. And yeah, it's good marketing. It gets you enticed to say, oh, if I like this, I want to keep watching it. The one thing I love about the series is that the showrunner is Jonathan Nolan, who I do believe that is Christopher Nolan's brother. And him and his partner, I forget the lady he's partnered with on this series, they did Westworld on HBO, which I loved Westworld. I was so upset and disappointed when that was canceled. Westworld is such a great, great series. So when I heard that they were going to be the showrunners for Fallout, I was like, ooh, I'm very intrigued. Very, very intrigued. Now, I have no history with the video game. Chad, you said you love the video game. That's awesome. I've never played it because I was never really a fan of the later iterations of Fallout, which was more open world RPG. It felt like you could spend hours, like hundreds of hours in that game with no end in sight. And I just could not get into a game like that. The older I get, the less time I want to spend on my games. Like I kind of want more linear storylines, more linear gameplay. Get me from A to B, I'm good. Open world, fuck it. I can't. It's too much to do. That's just how I am. So I have no ties to the video game franchise at all. I never played the first iterations of Fallout, which was more like a top-down kind of RPG, almost point and click to a certain point. So I have no history with the franchise at all. But I know bits of it. You know, like I know Pip-Boy, I know the armband machine. I know kind of the premise behind the story. So, I mean, whenever you're dealing with a post-apocalyptic type of story, I'm always interested in that because I find those type of stories fascinating. And the one great thing I love about Fallout, the universe that Fallout is in, it's kind of like that faux futuristic. It's like that faux future that's still stuck in the past, where it's a future that has a lot of like old school looking technology, like the old TVs, the old wardrobe, the old 70s style architecture. Like I love stories like that, and I love universes like that, you know, because I love the aesthetics of like the 70s, 60s, 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Like I love those aesthetics, and I love thinking of a future that's so advanced in technology but still maintains that same aesthetic. So I love storylines like that, and I love environments like that, and Fallout is definitely one of those. So I was very much interested in the series, and especially you have the cast there. Let me just pull it out because I'm a huge fan of the Showtime series Yellow Jackets, and Ella Purnell is you could kind of say she's a main character in the series. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it. But I love her in Yellow Jackets. I've always been a huge fan of Walton Goggins. I think anytime he shows up in any movie or anything, I just love him because he's like such an over-the-top actor. It's so fun to see him on screen. And so I decided to give the episode 1 a shot, and it was really good. Really, really good. Well produced, well directed, well edited, and the performances were so good. It's a very satirical type of show. They went with a satirical route, which I guess the game is in a way the same. It reminds me a lot of like early Paul Verhoeven, you know, like RoboCop-ish, maybe a little Starship Troopers like that type of satirical take on humanity, society, just a universe in general, right? And I love the take, and it basically sets the landscape of what's happening here. You know, long story short, the plot is you're in this future environment. I believe the year is like 2249 or whatever the case is. I forget. There's one point where they actually show you the year. But there's a conflict going on. There's a threat of nuclear fallout or nuclear warfare being used. And it happens. And basically, the entire Earth is in bunkers now. Either you are part of the underground folk or you're part of the outer-worldly folk, which is, you know, those who are still roaming the Earth throughout the whole fallout of nuclear war. So we see how it all started, which was like a very cinematic moment with Walton Goggins' character. I love the explanation of, you know, the whole thumb sticking out. Yeah, you see the Pip-Boy imagery of that guy always doing like one of those things, like the thumbs up. And there's something behind that. So I love the explanation of whenever you see an explosion happen, stick your thumb out. And if the cloud of smoke is smaller than your thumb, now's a good chance to run. You'll make it. If it's bigger than your thumb, do what you can, but you're probably too late. So it's a very interesting mark and measure on like kind of nuclear war and all that. So I love how they kind of like evolved or kind of went more into depth about that. The episode is split into 3 because there are 3 story arcs here involved that you're going to be following throughout the series, from what it seems. You have Ella's character, who is part of the underground folk, right? So basically, she's part of the underground folk. She's like the daughter of a prominent person who's well respected in her sector, and each underground sector is divided by number. So I believe they're part of Vault 33. And she's going through this whole ceremony where she's going to be an arranged marriage with someone from Vault 32. And crazy shit happens because Vault 32 was run over, and it looks like they weren't exactly the folks from 32. They were people from the outer world. And they invaded, and now they're invading Vault 33 because they were let in and all that. So you're following her storyline there. Because of what happened within her vault, she now has to venture out into the outer world to find her father, because her father was kidnapped and taken by those people, the Ravagers, who are now living outside. So you follow that storyline, and she's basically now, the episode pretty much ends with her out into the open, now in search for her father. Then you're following a character called Maximus, who is part of the Brotherhood of Steel, which looks like they are the military. They are the purveyors of peace on the outer world section. And you are seeing him training and doing his thing. And it looks like he just wants to be assigned to a specific region or mission. And, you know, we're following his storyline there. And then you're now following Walton Goggins' character, who survived the nuclear blast, the nuclear fallout, and is part of the Ghoulish Society or whatever that is. I wasn't quite sure or clear how they explain it. Those of you who know the video game probably know better than I do. But he's now, it's like the Wild West. And he is part of that survival group who, I guess, go around at night, and they're doing what they do. And I'm sure from what it looks like from the trailers, the episode ended like kind of recapping or kind of like giving a preview of what to expect in this season. Eventually, all 3 of these main characters are going to meet up. And there's going to be a team up, and we're going to follow a major through line with their story there. But from what I've seen in the first episode so far, very fascinating, very brilliant. And I'm digging it so far. This is just one episode. What I usually like to do is like I give everything a 3-episode leeway. I call it the 3-episode test. If after 3 episodes I'm still hooked, then I'm going to continue watching it. If by the 3rd episode you don't have me, but I'm somewhat interested, then maybe I'll put you on the shelf for now, and I'll revisit at a certain time. And of course, if it just wasn't working out, then I'm probably never going to watch you again. But this, after watching 1 episode, I really felt the urge and the need to watch the rest of the season. I haven't yet. I may just subscribe to Prime Video for a month just so I could do so, because all of the episodes are available now. They didn't do the week-to-week release like they normally do. This is one of the few shows that they decide to just dump all of the entire season on all at once. So it is bingeable. I'm probably going to end up binging it. And because of the popularity of this series, they've seen the increase in interest in the video game. I believe the online activity for Fallout 76 or one of the games or something like that hit an all-time record on Steam. And they also recently announced that Season 2 has been greenlit, and they will be working on a Season 2 for Fallout. So huge accomplishment for this series, and a lot of people are really loving it and digging it. I will know for once I get to watch the rest of it how I feel about it, and of course I'll be sharing my experiences with all of you there. But from what I've seen just in episode 1 so far, pretty good, pretty good, I have to say. All right, I'm going to close out the morning here, and I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite series out there, and that is Tokyo Vice. Tokyo Vice season 2 just ended a week ago. I finally was able to watch the entirety of season 2. I wasn't sure we were gonna get a season 2 after season 1 because season 1 came out during the vid era, COVID lockdown, and I loved it, but I didn't hear a lot of buzz around it. I feel like it was one of those shows that came out that people were enjoying, but not a lot of people were talking about. So when season 1 ended, and it kind of ended in a cliffhanger, I wasn't sure what's going to happen. And I was afraid that we were going to get bad news that the series is not going to continue, that the cliffhanger is just going to be that, and that would be the end of it. Then it was announced that we were going to get season 2, and I was so happy. And then when season 2 came out, I was kind of taken back. I was like, oh, snap. Season 2 is releasing now? I had no idea because I kind of lost track and just wasn't really following up with everything. But season 2 came out, just ended, completed. It was 10 episodes long, and it was a fantastic season. It was a lot of fun. And everything I loved about the first season, we definitely got here. Quality-wise, I did feel like this season suffered a little bit. And I kind of want to say that the acting and the performances weren't as great as the first season. But not by much. At the end of the day, it was still very enjoyable because I have grown interest in these characters here. And just to give a recap and insight on it all, the premise here is that you have Jake Adelstein, who is an American journalist, decides to go to Tokyo, and he gets hired by one of the top papers in Japan, in Tokyo. The paper name that they use, I don't think is an existing paper, or it may be the Meishin, I think it's called. But he is put on, and it's rare from what, and this takes place in the 90s too. So this is not even modern day Japan. This is like 90s Tokyo, which things were still kind of, not very foreign friendly. And, I guess this was during a grittier time in Tokyo also. But he's tasked to report, or he gets the urge to want to report on the Yakuza. So he's trying to figure out how to report on crime without pissing a lot of people off. And given that he is also Gaijin, how he can do about so without, getting himself in trouble. And he basically learns how crime is being reported and is very much different from how it is in America. So he befriends a detective from the Tokyo Police Department that is played by Ken Watanabe, that is Katagiri. And basically he forms a friendship there, gets insights from Katagiri about Yakuza and how to report on Yakuza. He also befriends Samantha, who is another foreigner who was a Mormon missionary who finds herself in Japan. Now she is a hostess girl working in a hostess club. And the way when season 1 ended, she branched out on her own and she wants to open up her own club. So that's basically what's happening there with Samantha. Sato is someone from the Yakuza who she falls in love with, has a relationship with, also meets Jake, who they kind of have a bro thing going on, but there's also kind of, like a little conflict going on there because they were both at one point pining for the same woman. But Sato is played by Kasamatsu Shuo, great actor in this. And season 1 ended with him basically being stabbed and left to bleed to death on the streets of Tokyo because he works for one Yakuza group who has a major conflict with another Yakuza group, and someone within their own group had it out for him and basically left him for dead and all that. And plus, he was a very promising upcoming Yakuza member that may have had ties to, quote unquote, the throne with the Oyabun there. moving forward. Rinko Kikuchi, one of my famous actresses from Japan, is in this series too. She plays Amy, and she is Jake's boss at the newspaper. So we also follow kind of her storyline. And at the paper, Jake befriends two other reporters, Trendy and Tintin. Tintin is kind of like a nickname. So Tintin is friends with Jake and them. And basically, hold on one second. I just want to check something real quick. Okay. They formed their own little friendship there. They're learning about his gaijin ways. He's learning more about Japan from these guys. And it's a very cute friendship that they have going on there. In season 1, as Jake is getting into the thick of the Yakuza environment, learning and, tracking down this major Yakuza boss, Tozawa, who is the most threatening boss there. In order to get closer to him, he befriends a girl named Misaki, who is one of his mistresses. And then he forms a little relationship with her that teeters along the romance and kind of, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be doing this stuff. So there's a lot of groundwork that was laid in front of us for within season 1. And Jake, basically the main storyline was that Jake also falls in love with another hostess girl, Paulina, who is friends with Samantha. Paulina gets asked to do a job on a boat that is owned by Tozawa. She then disappears. They don't know where she is. Jake finds a videotape on his doorstep that's a security camera from the boat, and it turns out she was killed on that boat. And those in the room in the boat, one of which is a political figure who's like the head of immigration, or like some sort of immigration within Japan. Tozawa is sick. He is deathly ill, and he cannot get help unless he goes to the States, but he's on the no-fly list zone. He then disappears. No one knows where he went. Some assume that he's dead. That's kind of what happens within season 1. Season 2 starts off with Jake still reeling from the fact that he has this evidence on video about Paulina, and he shows it to Katagiri, and Katagiri is like, you can't do anything with this right now. You have to be patient. You can't report on this because that is a political figure there. And if he has ties with the Yakuza, then things are going to get hairy. We'll work on this together, blah, 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 this and that. Sato, who was stabbed to death, is now recovering, saved by his own people, with the guy who did this to him still there and wondering what he's going to do when he comes to, because they all know when he comes to, he's going to point to him as like, you did this to me, and it'll be the end of that. Right? So a lot of stuff in this season happens where it definitely progresses the storyline for everyone involved. And the end of the season 2, it does kind of come full circle with the overall idea and notion that the way crime and police handle things in Japan is very different to foreigners' eyes, especially from those from America. And sometimes the most optimal choice is not the most morale choice. And there's kind of a dance you have to play between the police system and the system on the streets, right? Long story short, it turns out that Tozawa was able to go to America and get liver transplant surgery. He wasn't supposed to do that, so how did he get there? And it turns out that he kind of sold out the Yakuza to the FBI, and that he agreed to be an FBI informant and inform the FBI on Yakuza activities that happens in the United States. At the same time, he is now using that power and using the ability that now he's okay to basically take over the Yakuza landscape in all of Japan, or at least in Tokyo, and become the one person to rule them all. And you have Jake, who's trying to figure all of this stuff out while still trying to live his life, not be in the radar of the Yakuza and die. You have Samantha, who's trying to open up her own place, does so, but is being threatened by the Yakuza, right? Because the Yakuza group that Sato belongs to, someone that's been imprisoned now shows up, who's now next in line to take over. So now he has a new boss, and this guy's crazy. So as always, crazy people do crazy things, and he rules a very different way as a threat to everything. All this stuff happens. The Oyabun for this group dies. So they're now wondering who's going to be next in line. And it becomes a big power struggle, right? So everyone's working together to try to figure all this stuff out. At the end of the day, Jake found evidence working with Katagiri that Tozawa is an informant, shows this to Sato. Sato then goes back to all the heads or the Oyabuns of all the Yakuza groups and says, this is what Tozawa is doing. We need to kind of group together and go against him. While all the evidence is there, normally you would think the police would be like, all right, we have enough grounds here to make an arrest on this guy and to put this guy on trial. They know how much of a threat Tozawa is, but instead they leave it up to the Yakuza to handle it themselves. And basically kind of ushers Tozawa to his own demise, where he is now faced amongst all the Yakuza members, saying that you have disrespected of us, you have dishonored us, and there's only one way out of this. And that's by presenting him with the sword and like, you know what to do. And so he goes through Harakiri, and that's the only way to bring back honor to his family and all that. So it's a lot of stuff that happens, and I'm leaving a lot of stuff out of this. All this to say that if you are a huge fan of crime thrillers, crime series, if you're a fan of Japanese culture, or just of interest in how Japanese culture is, how the Yakuza is, especially eras in Japanese history. Again, this is 90s Japan. So very interesting era, and an interesting time to see that being played out. They did a really good job at maintaining that era there. And just fun, interesting characters all around. At one point, Jake goes back to the United States and he's being tempted to kind of stay home and work for one of the major newspapers in his area. But then he realizes that he has a dream and this is what he does. The relationship that he has with Misaki is no longer going to be able to go on, because with everything that she experienced being the mistress of Tozawa, she needs a life that's boring and she needs to kind of retire to a suburban lifestyle. But Jake, he needs action. He needs to be around action. And there's no way they're going to be able to be together. Katagiri, with everything that he's done, his family was threatened. His life was in danger. He accomplished this one big thing, and now he feels like it's time for him to retire and maybe take a break from the police force. Jake's friendships within the paper has changed because there was a lot of backstabbing and things to do to get the story out. So his friendship with his friends there are kind of on the verge of no longer being existent. Emmy had her own storyline about her own family and her own relationships and dealing with what should she do. Should she be the father figure to her brother who has mental issues, or live her own life, branch out and do her own thing and flourish with the relationship that she has with this other person that works for another a magazine. You have Samantha, whose club was destroyed because of Yakuza gang member issues, where the Oyabun of Sato was killed in her club. And all she wants to do is rebuild the club. So she strikes a deal with Tozawa's wife, who she presents information to about some sort of property scheme and in land scheme. And the season ends with her deciding that she needs to take a break, that she's going to, hop on her motorcycle and drive to, who knows, Osaka, Kyoto, whatever, take a break and then think about things and come back eventually later on to Tokyo. So she leaves Sato. Their relationship kind of rekindled again. And apparently it sounds like she has all this money now. She was able to strike a deal that is like, millions and millions of dollars. So is she ever going to come back? Who knows? We don't know that for sure. So her storyline kind of concluded in that way. So it was just an interesting arc for everybody involved. And it was such a fun ride to go through the whole thing. I could have watched a lot more episodes with these guys here. I hope we do get a season 3. There hasn't been any announcement or talks about a season 3 being greenlit at all. The showrunner is optimistic that there's potential for a season 3, but we don't know yet. I really hope we do. But if we don't, this is still a complete storyline that concluded within these 2 seasons. And the way things ended in season 2 here is very conclusive. It's over. And I'm okay with that. Anything that happens past this is just bonus material at this point. Everyone's story arc ended in the way that's very satisfactory. So I'm very pleased with everything. And it was just a fun watch between season 1 and season 2. So if this wasn't ever on your radar, I highly recommend that you watch this. Give this a shot, especially if you're a fan of crime thriller, like genre, the crime thriller genre. If you love true crime, like a lot of this is based off of real situations that Jake himself went through. The person that wrote the book Tokyo Vice back in the day, and who's helping with the storylines and the story beats within this series. I believe he's like an executive producer or producer, whatever the case is. But Jake experienced a lot of these things in real life. So it's just interesting to think about that as all that is going down there. So really fun stuff. Like I said, I highly, highly recommend this series. You should all check it out for sure. Woof, I'm exhausted. I talked about a lot of stuff today, and I hope you enjoyed what you saw. I hope you enjoyed everything that was discussed this morning. Obviously, if you're watching on the replay or you plan to watch on the replay here, hold on, sorry, I did mean for that to play in the background. I will have chapters that will help, kind of separate all the things that we talked about and discussed this morning. There's a lot of other news bits that I didn't get to talk about today, like some stuff with Netflix and their earnings call recently. Other interesting tidbits here and there, but this is stuff that I could easily go into on Monday's stream. So I will be back again Monday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time, to talk about the box office, weekend box office, and to talk about and review things that I've watched over the weekend, which for now sounds like part 2 of Rebel Moon and Guy Ritchie's latest movie that hit theaters this weekend. So if you're interested in checking all that out, make sure you tune in again on Monday's stream, 10 a.m. there. I will, of course, be live regularly on the channel and in shorts. So depending on how you want to view this stuff, by all means, check me out any way you wish you would like to. And also to stay tuned to the channel, I've recently uploaded a nice little intro and Q&As with Nathan and David Zellner, who are the writers and directors of Sasquatch Sunset, which is right now one of my favorite, I guess, top 10 favorite films of 2024. That has released nationwide this weekend. So check that out if you're interested in hearing the creators behind that movie talk about their film. Also, trailer reactions to the latest trailers to Trap, M. Night Shyamalan's movie that's coming out in August, and Transformers 1, the Transformers animated movie coming out this year too, if you want to see those things. And I'll be uploading things hopefully throughout the weekend there. So again, I appreciate all the support and the love all of you have been giving me. Sorry I wasn't able to stream most of the week, but I am back. I think I should be back, hopefully, if my allergies are intact and I can get decent sleep. So big shout out to Chad for the support of the stream this morning, and to anyone else who's passed on through. I know people love to pass on through, watch a little bit, and then move on. So anyone who did that and enjoyed and maybe left a like and all that, thank you so much. Make sure you do leave a like. Dislike if you hated all this stuff and you hate my face or whatever the case is. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe if you want to see more of this content. And it's the best way to stay up to date with everything we do here on this channel. So with all that said and out of the way, I'm going to head on out for now. Stay cool, stay classy, stay safe. Catch you all in the next one. Peace out, y'all. Bye-bye.